G'day, Chris Walker here, and this is a summary, and it's a summary of the whole 30-day challenge, about at least about how we develop the power hour. So let's have a look. We've been through this three times already, so I won't lag on it. Body, mind, spirit, you. The body has seven areas of life that it can react to. The mind has seven areas of life that it can react to. The spirit has seven areas of life that it can react to. And you, therefore, have seven areas of life that you must live in some sort of balance. What we've done is we've broken these down and we've gone through them one by one. We've come to the conclusion that to have transparency and interconnectedness between all seven areas of life, we need a purpose that controls the body, we need inspiration that controls the mind, and we need a vision that engages the spirit in order to be a fully integrated, fully balanced person. And we need a purpose that engages all seven areas of life, inspiration in all seven areas of life, and a vision for all seven areas of life. So you are a balanced, fully integrated human being with seven areas of life, not all of the same priority. We've talked about values already. You know that one area of life will be more dominant than the others, but it doesn't depreciate the fact that if something goes wrong in one of the seven areas of life, it will become very important to you. So we're trying to maintain a generic focus across all seven areas of life, even though we may prioritize one or two. We recognize then that from an emotional, psychological point of view, that we needed sort of a filtration process that engages the body, the mind, spirit, and you. And what we said was gratitude, presence, certainty, and love were the four words that would really integrate at an emotional level and on a time scale. Gratitude, the past; presence being the moment now; vision being the future; and of course you having your arms wrapped around all three, and therefore being thankful for the past, totally present and powerful in this moment, and with certainty of the future, a very visionary person. What we've learnt over the 30 days is that there are seven levels of the mind, and they are the cellular brain, the spinal cord, the brainstem, basal ganglia, limbic brain, cortic brain, and corpus callosum. We've got words that we've used: got to, should do, need to, want to, desire to, choose to, that correspond with those levels of the brain. What may not have been apparent is those levels of the brain are also correspondent with our levels of evolution. In other words, we evolved from a cellular brain to an amphibian, reptilian, mammalian, and human and spiritual. So when we think got to, we're operating in our cellular brain, which is our primal level of living. The amphibian is the multicellular tadpole or the fish. The reptilian is when the fish grows legs, and you can see the evolution of the species coming up the right side. But what's really important to know is that the levels of our brain, when we use got to, should do, or need to, revert back to primal thinking. A great way to recognize this is through the idea of a triangle with a monkey at the bottom swinging the pendulum backward and forward. If we operate in our cellular brain, in our lower level of brain, we are the energy that's going back in emotion, going from left to right, is what we call 7 to 1. 7 positives to 1 negative, or 7 negatives to 1 positive. The should do or amphibian is 6 to 1, reptilian is 5 to 1, mammalian is 4 to 1, human mammalian 3, human is 2 to 1, and spiritual is 1 to 1, which is the corpus callosum, and it's called unconditional love. Now, this pendulum swinging backwards and forwards, the amount of energy that the little monkey there has to spend to get the pendulum to go backwards and forwards, is quite high at the cellular brain. So when we have a very emotional day, we feel exhausted, even though we've achieved or done very little. In the spiritual state, in a state of meditative unconditional love or meditative enlightenment or grace, we spend no energy at all on anything mental, physical, and we are therefore liberated in a sense to be completely energized and fully available for the day. So let's continue here. This also corresponds, this backwards and forwards motion, to the rings of a tree, and you can see this tree here has been blocked. Its growth has been blocked, and it's formed the shape of a heart, but that's not how it was meant to be. And this is sort of what happens when we get blockages, when we get a mother issue or father issue, or we get a bit of an issue in our life. There's areas where we don't grow, and we become warped or distorted in our growth. But what is important to recognize here is that the little monkey in the tree grows up in the triangle from got to love to. But as soon as we get to love to, we go through what's called a frustra, and we give birth to another monkey in a tree. We start from the bottom and come up again. And as soon as we get from got to love to, we birth another monkey in the tree, and it goes up again. And this is quite surprising for people, because they think they go through the 30 days, or they think they go through a challenge and pop out the other side finished. But all we've learned is a process of going from got to love to, got to love to, got to love to. This is called an evolving, growing, healthy human being. And it looks like this in a very simple sense, and you've still got the monkey going from ring to ring on the tree here. You can see it's more graphic and more simplified, but it still means we evolve through frustra, and we evolve in the 7 areas of life, so we evolve upwards. Very simple diagrammatic representation. Now, one of the things that people do is when good things happen, they take credit and they start blowing their own trumpet. They go, wow, I this and I that. And one of the things that you will have learnt by now is that we do what's called an I-tox. We learn not to speak in the I or the me, to focus on this aspect of life. Turns us inside out, and we start to think from the outside in instead of the inside out. If we want to think from the inside out, we stop blowing our trumpet, because every time we put ourselves up, someone's going to put you down. Every time we put ourselves down, someone's going to bring us up. And this cycle that goes up and down really can become a very distracting and emotionally taxing way to live. The world does go round, and we go round with it, and if we're not careful, it'll spin too fast. And when the world spins too fast, we can't think, we can't feel, we can't experience love. It's all going around and round, and this is called emotion. So emotion is bipolar, and at the bottom of the triangle, we have one side of us blowing our trumpet, ha ha ha, and the other side of us severely depressed. And so what we're careful of is infatuation, which is seeing more positives than negative in something, breeds resentment, infatuation, resentment. Attraction and repulsion. If we're super attracted to something, we'll eventually be repelled from it. Elation and depression is a very interesting one, to recognize that a person who's in depression is typically elated in some area of their life or in their subconscious mind about a fiction that they can live out. So all this comes back, and I really want to emphasize this, that it's all researchable by you. Firstly, going into nature, you'll see the balance. Secondly, if you go back to ancient Egypt and look for the symbology that I use throughout this program, you'll see the sacred geometry that we're talking about here, very well represented by Pythagoras and the great Egyptians 4,000 years ago. So we even talk about it like this in relationship, because two people overlap in relationship in a sacred geometry. But when one person starts to grow, it really becomes interesting, because when one person grows, they take over and their 30%, their overlap becomes huge on the other person. So when you're doing this program and you grow, the demands on your partner to meet you will automatically trigger them to start thinking about their life and their vision and their growth, and they will grow. Now, if you grow and you overlap too much, you'll start to become bored with each other. So what eventually happens is you shift out to a healthy balance again, and that takes a week or two after the end of the 30 days, and it happens annually. We're not about blowing smoke up each other's bum, so we're not about lying, but we do remember that flattery really gets you everywhere, And sometimes it's necessary to say things and to compliment people to encourage them through their wrestle with the journey of their life. They may not have a coach to support them through it. So going back to this pyramid, this got to love to, we recognize that this got to love to thing is very similar to having your own Mount Everest, to continually having to rise up from the feeling of got to do something up to the experience of love to do something. And what I've taught you in the 30 days is the process to keep rising back up, to continually climb your Everest. It looks more like this. Instead of going up a triangle, we go up a continual loop of triangle. This is my old draft of my old logo from my original business. So it's like having these Everests that continually come, and we keep rising to bigger Mount Everests. And whenever I meet people who've climbed Mount Everest, and when I'm in Nepal and they're coming home, they're always talking about the next mountain. And it's really wise for you to be talking about your next got to love to, where you're going to go to incompetence, go to challenge at work or at home or somewhere and feel incompetent, and work your way through it without beating yourself up, to acknowledge that that's the way life works and nobody ever taught us that before. So going back to the original diagram of Walker Chi, we know body, mind, spirit. We know vision, inspiration, and purpose. We know gratitude, presence, certainty, and love. And we know this structure integrates all the 7 areas of life and therefore gives us harmony within ourselves. And we can also overlay the got to love to grid, the consciousness grid over that, and see that got to and should language align with the body, need to and want to language align with the mind, and desire to and choose to align with the spirit, and leave us free as a human being to come to the world in a state of love to. We also know that there's 7 areas of life, and these 7 areas of life are continually vacillating or moving around, trying to challenge us and give us what nature calls growth or evolution. We grow at the border of support and challenge. And one area of life might be supporting us, another area of life might be challenging us. And it's very easy to feel sorry for ourselves and focus on where the challenge is without looking at the area of life that's counterbalancing that and focus on where the support is and recognize them both. This gyroscope would fall over if there wasn't support and challenge on either side. And this is a great representation of the 7 areas of life and how they take precedence and we move focus from one to the other. I think this is a very important chart to recognize. This is a picture of sound waves, and they're pictures of thoughts. And what we can see in the pictures of thoughts is the little monkey at the back there. The got to is the biggest sound wave, and the got to is low resolution or low vibration. So the highest vibration we could go through life with is the straight line through the middle, the grey line, which would be nearly impossible. You'd need to be a monk in enlightened state in 24/7. So we're all going to have sound waves, and our vibration or the energy that comes from us will be determined by which level of the triangle we work from, whether we're at choose to or going down to want to or living at got to. Now, as I've said, we always go through got to love to, got to love to. So the question is how long you're going to take. Next time you find yourself feeling incompetent or sad or put down or not good enough, and how quickly you're going to move that to a state of unconditional love by balancing your thoughts. It's really represented very cleverly by Japanese symbolism and in the cycle of life. And what it basically says is you'll go around, but it'll never be complete. It'll never finish. It will continually go round and round. And the Tao also represented in yin yang, the same thing. It's also represented in the spiral of the universe, the galactic spirals that life expands, continually expands. So therefore what I created with the Back on Track was the 7 areas of growth. And this basic chart here says that every time you grow in one area of life, whether it's in your spiritual, mental, social, financial, career, health, or relationship, You go through this little cycle, this little check, and I call it the daily power hour. So every day you do a discard, which means you take a thought and you balance it. Every day you do something a little more beautiful for the cellular health of your body and your immunity and your stamina. Every day you improve your environment, either by the external environment, by cleaning your desk or changing your clothes or upgrading your brand, or even doing something in nature outside of yourself. You improve your environment just a little bit every day. Your mind area, the number 4, is about focus and priorities. So every day we become more focused, more prioritized. We delegate more. We do the do dump delegate process, and we go through the process of organize, supervise, and deputize to clear the mind so that we get more and more focus on the priorities that we've set for ourselves. On the 5th one, it's the vision. And every day your vision must expand a little bit, just a little bit. And that's the Walker-Chi exercises coming around in the full cycle. And the last but not least is the self-talk. And if we talk to ourselves the same way today as we did yesterday, then we will go back to yesterday. So we have to keep, in a sense, when I talked about flattery, the one person you need to flatter, I believe, is yourself. You need to talk yourself into being something greater than you are, because self-talk will always draw, if it doesn't grow, it will always draw you back to who you were. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and this is a great little summary of where we're at. If there are any questions, please email or give me a call. Bye for now.